2 years may seem like a long time, but while you're on HRT, it is actually quite short. And many things can happen 2 years into HRT. So for this episode of Stacy Links Presents, I'm going to do my 2-year HRT update. Stick around, I'll be right back. Alright, so welcome to my channel. I'm Stacy, and today I'm going to do my 2-year HRT update. January 12th, 2024 marked 2 years for me on feminizing hormone therapy. In this episode, I'm going to talk about all the things that have changed in the last 2 years, and then I'm going to talk about the things that didn't change. So before we get started, what I'll get you to do if you're new to this channel and you're a transgender person or a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, make sure you go down below in this episode and hit that subscribe button. And click the little bell beside to be notified anytime I upload new content to my channel. I suggest you go check out my channel page. I have playlists of videos on my makeup routines, fashion, and jewelry, as well as advocating for the LGBT community and documenting my transition. And you may have come over here from social media, but if you're not following me on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, make sure you check the description below for all my links. Alright, so let's get right into it. So the first thing that I've noticed that has changed is my weight. And now for every trans person, it varies as to what your weight changes are going to be. Sometimes you lose weight, sometimes you gain weight. And it very much depends on your metabolism. I was blessed with having a really high metabolism. So in the last 2 years, I have a net loss of 10 pounds. I started at 165. Then after about 6 months to a year, I dropped to 150 pounds. And then I just gained another 5 pounds recently. So that's one thing that usually changes while on HRT. The next thing I noticed that's changed is my blood pressure. At my very first appointment, my blood pressure was 137/87. Then a year later, my blood pressure had dropped to about 117/67. Since going on antidepressants, my blood pressure is all over the place right now. But generally speaking, blood pressure isn't something you would expect to change on HRT. Sometimes it can go down, sometimes it can go up. So your mileage may vary. And people who are over 40 and on HRT need to monitor our blood pressure. So my doctor has prescribed me a blood pressure monitor, which I have been trying to use on a frequent basis. So something else that I've noticed that's changed in the last 2 years are my emotions. And this is a very common thing for trans women to go through emotional expansion and increased emotional awareness. Now I've noticed that I can cry at the drop of a hat sometimes. My depression has gone up and down. My depression has changed since being on HRT, and I am being treated for generalized depression, but I won't get into that in this episode. What I can say though is that your emotions will become a lot more broad and your emotional awareness will become heightened. I notice that when I'm going through emotions that I can label each emotion that I'm feeling, and not just one or two. It could be 5 or 6 at the same time, and sometimes I feel positive emotions and negative emotions at the same time. So I'm hoping that the antidepressants I'm taking will help regulate that. But generally, I have noticed a major expansion in my emotions in the last 2 years. Some other changes that I've noticed too is with regards to my hair, my head hair, as well as my body hair. My body hair has thinned out quite a bit and is probably half as thick as it was when I first started HRT. And as for my head hair, it started out being poker straight for the longest time. And now 2 years into HRT, it's become really wavy and curly. But it's also started to get thin itself as well, which again, for each trans person, it varies how it affects your hair. Sometimes it'll make it curly, and thin. Sometimes it'll thicken it. Sometimes it'll change curly hair to straight. So there's really no rule as to what to expect for hair changes. Generally, body hair does get thinner, but one area of hair that I've noticed that hasn't really gotten much thinner is my facial hair. And the regrowth is still pretty high. So again, your mileage may vary with that. Some people have a reduction in facial hair growth, some people don't. So I had just started progesterone this past October, and it's probably about a year later than most trans girls will start progesterone if they go on it. One thing that I've noticed is that I've had increased breast growth and body fat distribution, because I've noticed that my face is changing more. I have more breast growth, and even my bum has gotten bigger. But something else about progesterone, it also can cause your emotions to go wild as well. So during that time, we had a bunch of issues that I talked about in my return episode, and it caused a serious amount of depression for me. So that's part of the reason why I went on antidepressants. So once again, I'm not going to get into it in this episode. Alright, so for this part of my episode, I'm going to talk about things that have not changed in the last 2 years on HRT. First thing that I've noticed that has not changed is my height. I'm 6 feet tall, and I have pretty much maintained this height throughout my transition so far. I don't anticipate losing any height. Some people do, some people don't. Again, your mileage may vary. It very much depends on your genetics and how the estradiol affects your body. But for me, I've noticed absolutely zero reduction in size, or my shoe size is still the same. That's something else that some trans people will experience, is a reduction in your shoe size. That hasn't been a thing for me in 2 years. Something else that hasn't changed for me on HRT is my voice. Estradiol does not typically change your voice tone. The only thing that it does to your voice is it makes your vocal palate softer and more malleable, which means that you have the ability to articulate your voice a lot better. My singing voice has improved, but once again, I'm still singing at the same level I always have been pre-transition. Only on testosterone does your voice change, but estradiol doesn't change your voice really at all. Something else that hasn't changed in 2 years, and usually never does for trans girls or trans people in general, is my sexuality. The only thing that you would change in your sexuality is the label you put on it. But whoever you're attracted to pre-transition, that's pretty much going to stay the way it is. I'm mainly attracted to women and femmes. I'm mostly sapphic, so that's just the way it's going to remain no matter how long I'm on HRT for the rest of my life. Last and most certainly not least, one thing that will never change for me or any other trans person is our personality. I still have the same personality I've had since I was born, as well as our interests generally don't change that much. Sometimes a trans person can become interested in things that they weren't interested in before, but sometimes all it is just refreshing old interests and realizing that this is still a part of who I am. So I'm still interested in the same music, I'm still into video games, I'm still into the same kind of movies, I'm still interested in all of the same activities that I've been for pretty well most of my life already. So definitely something that rarely changes is your interests. So just to sum this up here at the end, there have been a lot of changes for me in the last 2 years of HRT, but there have been a lot of things that have not changed, and very typical of things that don't change can change for some people, but other things just don't change at all, like your personality will never change. You're still going to be the same person on the inside 2, 4, 10 years into HRT. It will never change who you are. Alright, so thanks for watching. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button down below and drop a comment if you've been on HRT for any length of time. Share your experiences as to what has changed for you while on HRT. I would love to hear your comments. And stay tuned for my next episode. I'll see you then. Bye!